Hello, thank you so much for joining me on a deeper conversation with Christine. Here's a quick question I have for you. Would you pass for another ethnicity in order to live a more prosperous or fulfilling life? Okay, well, this is exactly what one of my characters in my book did. Her name is Jacqlyn-Sophie, and the book is called The Diary of Madame Decadeaux Part 2. Now, here's a little backstory about Jacqueline-Sophie. She is the youngest daughter of Marie Claire and Gabriel Decadeaux. So if you listen to my episode 2 of my podcast, you learned that Gabrielle is a Frenchman and Marie Claire is an African woman who had 6 kids together. So now Jacqueline Sophie was the only one of their children that were born completely white in appearance, right? So therefore she had very strong European features. She had the very light skin, the very refined hair texture, and the very, very strong European features. So if one were to look at her, you won't be able to tell that she has any black in her, right? So now this story is set in the 1700s on the island of Saint-Domingue, modern day Haiti. And I'm going to go ahead and give you a little bit more details about Jacqueline Sophie's background. So now she's a part of the wealthy free people of color class. So that means she's a part of a mixed race class that is extremely educated, highly educated, and wealthy on the island. So therefore, she already have an upper hand in society, right? In life, right? And not only that, she has a wealthy white father who acknowledged her as his own, making her an heir to his vast estate. So therefore, she is even more of a privileged young lady. However, her story goes completely left when her and her entire family goes to visit New Orleans, Louisiana. Let's listen to an excerpt from my book, The Diary of Madame Decadeaux, Part 2, parts of Chapter 11 and Chapter 12, and then we'll talk later.
Chapter 11. One evening, as Jacqlyn-Sophie prepared to leave the house, I heard shouting from the upstairs room she shared with Rosemit Ann. Alarmed, I rushed to see what had transpired. "What is the matter?" I demanded as I entered. "Mama, Jacqlyn-Sophie is courting a white American who does not know she's half African. I have tried to warn her that the same thing will happen to her as it did to Marie Monique," Rosemit Ann exclaimed. Feeling exposed and betrayed, Jacqlyn-Sophie turned on her sister, resentment flashing in her eyes. "You're jealous because you're black and I am white," she screamed. Without warning, Rosemit Ann slapped her. I quickly stepped between them to stop the quarrel. "Stop it! Stop it now!" I shouted. "You are sisters. This is intolerable. Jacqlyn-Sophie, your sister, is right. It will not end well when he learns the truth. The Americans are far less tolerant of mixed-race unions. And you are wrong, child. You are not white. You are my daughter. You came from my womb. You are part African." Before I could finish, Jacqlyn-Sophie broke into sobs. "No, I am not," she cried. "I do not look African. I love you, Mama. I truly do, but I do not look like you. I look like Papa. Look at me, Mama. I am white. I am tired of paying the price for blood I did not choose. I am weary of being a second-class citizen because of who my mother is. I want to be free. Free to go where I please, to love whom I wish. I want to be white. I am white. Please, Mama. Please let me be." Her words pierced me like a blade. Then, before I could speak, she fled the room, running down the stairs and into the night where a carriage awaited her. Rosemit Ann and I stood frozen, tears welling in both our eyes. "Mama, she does not mean what she says," Rosemit Ann whispered, wrapping her arms around me. "She is only upset. That is all. I clung to her as my heart broke within me. I had always known that my children secretly worshipped the whiteness they had inherited, the so-called superior blood that coursed through their veins, while despising the black blood that flowed effortlessly through every crevice of their bodies. Yet to hear it spoken aloud by my own daughter were words I shall never forget. Chapter 12. Now, the events which led to Jacqlyn-Sophie, my fourth born, nearly losing her life while in Louisiana, are as follows. One day, as Jacqlyn-Sophie and I were in the marketplace purchasing foodstuffs, unbeknownst to us, Edgar Adam was nearby, watching and listening as we conversed in our usual mother and daughter manner. "Mama, what do you think of this hair ribbon? Does it suit me?" she asked sweetly. "Yes, my child," I replied vaguely, my attention elsewhere among the vendors. Edgar, who had been admiring Jacqlyn-Sophie from behind a pillar, overheard our exchange. When he noticed that Jacqlyn-Sophie was momentarily alone, for I had wandered off in search of a chapeau, he seized her by the arm with startling force. "Jacqlyn-Sophie," he hissed, "did I hear you correctly? Did you call that darky, Mama? As in mother?" Jacqlyn-Sophie attempted to pull away. "If you do not unhand me, I will." "You will what?" he sneered. "Call your negress mother on me?" He leaned closer, his voice low. "Listen, Jacqlyn-Sophie, I do not care about that. I love you. If you marry me, we can go far away, and no one will ever know who your mother really is." "Let me go, you savage," she said in a controlled whisper, desperate not to attract attention, struggling free of his grasp. "You see," Edgar continued, "it doesn't bother me that you're half negress, but I can't say the same for Charles." "You would not dare," Jacqlyn-Sophie challenged him. "Why shouldn't I?" he spat. "You're prancing around here, pretending to be a white woman. You and your kind deceive good white men, make them fall in love with you, then spring your dirty little secrets once you trap them in your claws." Just then, Charles stumbled upon their confrontation. "What is going on here? And why does my beautiful lady wear such a long face?" Charles asked tenderly, his gaze fixed on Jacqlyn-Sophie. "Oh, Charles, it's nothing," Edgar replied quickly, forcing a laugh. "I was only telling Jacqlyn-Sophie that I don't fancy her gown. It makes her appear a little fuller around the waist. Don't you think?" They all laughed politely, and Jacqlyn-Sophie let out a soft sigh of relief. "My chérie, I must go now. My father awaits my return," she said anxiously, and with that she quickly departed. The very next day, Charles and Jacqlyn-Sophie were to meet at the town square. Since Jacqlyn-Sophie had already confided in me about her confrontation with Edgar Adam, I begged her not to keep her appointment with Charles. Yet she was convinced that Edgar had not revealed her secret. Despite my pleas, she went to meet him. If only I had told Gabrielle of the courtship, perhaps we might have spared her what was to come. When Charles met Jacqlyn-Sophie at the square, he greeted her warmly and said he had a surprise for her, one that required a short trip outside New Orleans. Thinking nothing of it, she agreed. As they traveled farther from the city, Jacqlyn-Sophie began to feel uneasy. "My dear Charles, where are you taking me?" she asked softly. "We are almost there. I want to show you a beautiful chateau, the one I shall purchase for you when we wed." Charles fibbed. "Oh, Charles, I cannot wait," Jacqlyn-Sophie exclaimed, kissing his cheek as he guided the carriage onward. After a pause, Charles asked in a low voice, "My love, do you know what I hate more than anything on God's green earth?" "No, but what is it, Charles?" she asked softly, smiling carefree as she clung to his free hand. "Liars, impostors, deceivers," he said sharply. Jacqlyn-Sophie's heart pounded. "Whatever do you mean?" she whispered, slowly pulling her hand away from his. "Ah, here we are," Charles said suddenly, bringing the carriage to a halt. "But Charles, there is nothing here but trees and shrubs," she said, glancing around bewildered. "No worries, my love. The chateau lies just beyond those trees. Come with me." Hesitant but trusting, Jacqlyn-Sophie dismounted from the carriage. "Come, my love," Charles said calmly, taking her hand. Then, after a pause, he asked coldly, "Jacqlyn-Sophie, I want to ask you a question. Are you a negress?" "Charles, what sort of question is that? I do not understand of what you speak." "Now be a gentleman and take me back to New Orleans," she replied, her voice trembling as she turned toward the carriage. But Charles seized her by both arms and shook her violently. "You know exactly what I mean," he shouted. "Are you a negress? Black? A coon? A swine in a gown?" "Stop, Charles, please. You're hurting me." "Why are you doing this?" she sobbed, fighting to pull away. "How could you?" he cried, tears cutting down his face. "How could you make me fall in love with you, knowing what you are, a negress, a darky masquerading as a white woman?" "Pardonnez-moi, Charles, please," she sobbed. "Please what? Please what?" he roared. "I love you," she whispered through her tears. He froze for a moment, uncertain whether to kiss her or strike her. But his disgust outweighed his love. With sudden force, he slapped her so hard that her lip burst open and blood streamed from her nose. "You monkey, I saw you, Jacqueline. I saw you in the marketplace with that negress. I followed you to see if Edgar was telling the truth, and he was. I heard you, Jacqueline. I heard you calling her mama. I heard you," he screamed. "No, Charles, look at me. I do not look African. I look white. Yes, my mother is African, but I look just like you, Charles." "I am white," Jacqlyn-Sophie cried desperately, trying to convince him. Upon hearing those words slither from her lips, Charles flew into a rage and began to beat her as if he were striking a man. Blow after blow fell upon her until she was unrecognizable, only stopping after he had completely released his rage, after which he left my daughter's body battered and abandoned in the wilderness, discarded like waste, in a latrine. Though I have forgiven many for the terrible things they have done to me throughout my life, I cannot summon even an ounce of forgiveness for Charles Smith. Of all the wrongs I have endured, his is the one my heart refuses to release.
You were listening to an excerpt from my book, The Diary of Madame Decadeaux, Part 2. And you can listen to full episodes of my podcast by clicking the link in my bio. Thank you once more for joining me on a deeper conversation with Christine. Until next time, peace out.